I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. I thought how, as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Mm.
That's by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And I love, love, love that. It's called I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day.
I feel like you should have sung it.
That's a different podcast. Merry Christmas, everyone. This is Christmas week when this podcast comes out, and we hope that everyone has a joyful time with family and enjoys the blessings that come with being together and giving and receiving, because those are blessings, and just being together, what a blessing it is. And I hope that no one has any stress, no one has any problems, no one burns anything in the oven or the stove. I hope the weather is wonderful and the kids can go outside and play and all of those good things about Christmas. So, Merry Christmas. We're going to have a discussion about something a little related. It can be related. Loving the unlovely or the unlovable, which sometimes we do come across people in a stressful time that are a little bit harder to love. Sometimes that's me,
Ugh,
but
never.
before we do that, I just want to find out how my friend Kathy Pollard over in Bowling Green, Kentucky, how you doing and what's going on over there?
Doing really good. We're right in the middle of all the, fun holiday merrymaking with we're going tonight to Dale and Janelle's house, and Monday we're going to my sister's house, and then Christmas Eve and day, Carl and Emily are heading to Georgia, but everybody else will be coming here. So getting ready for all of that, and had kind of a momentous week because yesterday Apricot turned a year old.
Mhm.
And
Did
then
you get a birthday
tomorrow,
cake?
no, we didn't even, somebody asked us at church if we got her a present. We didn't even do that.
She's a cow. It's
We
okay.
didn't sing to her. We didn't do anything. And then tomorrow, Atlas, our youngest grandchild, turns 6 months old. So it's
Hmm.
special week here with everybody growing so fast and, good things. We had family pictures on Saturday. That's what Carl and Emily gave everybody for Christmas, which I love that idea.
Oh yeah, what a
And
great
there's
idea.
this beautiful park near where they live that has like an old log cabin out there, and then it has a pavilion that has a big stone fireplace. So we had pictures of us all in front of this log cabin and pictures of us in this big like stone hearthy looking thing, and um,
Outdoor.
outdoors. It was cold that day. And we're all wearing sweaters. So we didn't want to cover it up with a coat, but it was pretty cold. So some of our grins might be like,
Hopefully there's no trickles of anything out of the nose.
but I'm so excited to see them because it's the first time since we've had all the grands that all of us have gotten together, and there's going to be pictures of just Neil and me with the grandchildren, and then each family unit, and then just all the guys and just all the girl, all those special things that you do. So
Did you have a photographer or did y'all just set up the camera and do it yourselves?
no, Carl and Emily hired a photographer, and that's why it was their Christmas present for everybody. So we're looking forward to seeing those, but
An excellent idea.
it is. I loved it. I loved it. I was very
And that's
grateful.
one of those things that people won't do. They just, oh, we'll do it later. But if it's
Mhm.
done for you, then yeah.
Yeah, and they told us about this weeks ago and said we want to go ahead and get on it and pick a date. Does this date work for everybody? So it's been on the calendar for a while just to make sure we did it. So
Mm,
that was
can't wait
good.
to see them.
Yeah, and then the other big news that I thought I would share is that Neil's latest book came in yesterday. which we think looks really great. Dale and Janelle designed the cover. I don't guess it's really showing up too good.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of dark from here, but the pictures
yeah,
that you put on
it is
social media.
overcast and rainy today, so I don't have great lighting, but it's keeping the church from the wilderness. And it's a study of the wilderness that you read about in the Old Testament, the wilderness wanderings, the 40 years, and all the struggles that they had, comparing that to the challenges that the church faces and how to navigate those. So, um, anyway, we're really excited about that. And I've been tucking watercolor bookmarks in with the orders. And so now I'm like trying to scramble to get a bunch out really quick. And this was the ones that
No.
I'm doing this design today. So I've got like assembly line, I've just lined them all up and I'll do this color on all of them and then the next color and then the next color. So
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I got
yeah,
one.
the good thing about it is it'll force me to get better at watercolor because now I'm getting a lot of practice in. So.
This this is the one that you,
Hey,
yeah.
yeah.
And I have to confess that part of my reason for ordering was not just to get something for the girls, but because I knew you were doing bookmarks. I thought,
Oh,
something for me and something for them.
thanks. And thanks for your order. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's fabulous. And you can share a link, I'm sure next week, or we're going to be off for a few weeks while we end of year celebrate. And before, at the end of this is the sixth season. We have
Hmm.
to think about that for a minute. And then before we start season seven in
Hmm.
January of 2026. So hope
Three
everybody
full
will hang
years.
around. Yeah,
3 full years of doing this podcast with you.
it's been fun. Been
Hmm.
one of my favorite things ever to do.
Well, and we're thankful to everybody who's been with us from the beginning. I mean, we're thankful for everybody, but there are some that have been listening from the beginning, and we just feel like family. It seems like now our community on Facebook and the Looking Up group. I love the interaction over there, and I love the funny things that you put in there, like your little experiment with your husband.
Worked perfectly. He's
Yeah,
such a good sport, though. I walked in and I said, okay,
he
I
really is.
put my hand on your face, and this is what you need to say. And he did. But he didn't, if it'd been me, I'd be like, oh, I got to comb my hair. Don't, what am I going to say? But
Mhm.
he just did it all. He's just a good sport.
He
Good
really is.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I guess you can
Well,
keep him. Yeah.
yeah.
You've been up to.
Well, I think that we've put almost 40 years into it. It's all right. It's going to work out.
It might work out.
Yeah, I think so. So we are not celebrating Christmas until the following week because, and we've always told the kids, well, for the last 10 years or so, we've just said, doesn't matter when, as long as we can all do it together, y'all pick a date and that it doesn't have to be on Christmas. So it's going to be January 1st through the 3rd when they all come down.
Hmm.
And so I feel like I have an extra week of preparation. I can hit up some of the after Christmas sales, which is going to
That's
be
genius.
nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, it works out well. So I haven't even wrapped anything yet. I've got a table over here that's got things sitting on it, but I had to organize them. And sometimes I get a little bit cranky about the fact that I am the one that does all of the shopping and John he really has no clue. We have a running joke in our family when Grady and Janice were around. We'd sit around open gifts and whoever was opening something from them would say, "Oh, thank you, Granny and Granddad." And Grady would be like, "Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome." And then he would just over to the side say, "What'd we get them to
Yeah,
do this?"
exactly.
And he had no clue. And sometimes I do I don't get cranky about it. I'm like, "John, you have no idea what everybody's getting." We'll talk about it a little bit, but then I came across some social media this week that was really it was something I needed to hear. I knew it, but I needed to hear it. And it was just a picture of a dad playing with his kids. And it says, he doesn't know what Santa got them for Christmas, but I don't know when the mortgages due. Same team, different players. And I thought, that's so
That,
true. That's so
that is
true.
so true. Yeah.
He handles different things than I do. And I do, that's just what makes a team work is
Hmm.
fulfilling each role and not getting mad when the other one is not doing what you have to do. Because, I mean, I don't technically, he doesn't pay the mortgage. He does work to pay the mortgage. I pay the bills, but there's so many things that he does that I have no clue about. And so I can be very content and happy about that. Just thought that was such a great reminder.
It is. And because we have the exact same scenario here that Neil shops for me and wraps my gifts, and I do literally everybody else's.
Yep.
And, it's a lot of work and you can get kind of cranky about that. But also, I showed him a reel that I saw the other day that was talking about this young man was saying that when he was dating the girl he was going to marry, he didn't know that one day he'd be going out to bust up the chickens' waterers, the waterer of the chickens that he never wanted in the first place.
Yep.
And I showed that to him and I thought, Neil has plenty of stuff that he could be kind of cranky about, because we have already had some really cold mornings and he's had to be out there busting up the water for apricot and the chickens. And when it's really cold, you have to do it more than once a day, like 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah. No
It is
thanks.
not fun. It is not fun. And so anyway, that's all me, but he's doing it.
Yeah.
So I need to remember that
I think
when
he loves you.
when my back is hurting because I'm wrapping presents in the warm, comfortable house with Christmas music on in the background and hot coffee right next to me.
Exactly. And John will offer. He'll say, "What can I do? I want to help you. You have all this stuff on your plate." And then I don't know what to tell him. I
Yeah, do
really
you
don't know
really
what to tell
want him wrapping those presents?
him. Well, some of them. He can wrap the boys. They wouldn't care anyway. They'll
Yeah.
laugh. And he would do it. He would do it. So I'm thankful for that. I wanted to share this sweet little globe came in the mail from Maury Best, and she's a friend. She lives in Georgetown, which is not very far from here, and it had a sweet note. And she said she saw it and just thought of world travels and thought that she was just very sweet and appreciative, saying nice things about John and me. And she listens. I know she's a listener, and so I wanted to just say a public thank you to Maury Best. And I also wanted to mention that we went to Clara's Christmas program. Clara is our oldest son's youngest daughter, and she's 4, and she goes to it's a little preschool. The Katy congregation has a little school called Yellow Brick Road, and she's in one of the classes there. And so we went down to Katy last Thursday, and I mean, if there's anything cuter than a bunch of 2, 3, and 4-year olds singing Christmas carols, I don't know what it is. And it was just they were reciting some memory verses. It was kind of like an end of the semester little program for their school, and then they all
Mhm.
had the Christmas hats. And she came in and sat down with her class and was sitting there, excavating, doing what 4-year olds do. And to protect, which I've already ruined it, but to protect her future teenage self, I will not share pictures of it, but I did take some. So it was
As long
cute.
as she didn't eat what she excavated.
I did not see her do any of that. So
Yeah.
thankfully, there was none of that.
Oh,
But
oh
it
man.
was fun.
So
Yeah.
cute. What a cute name for a little preschool.
Yep. Yellow Brick Road.
That's adorable.
It's been around for a while, and Jackson and Emmy both attended, and Aaron's been real involved in it. And Jordan works there, so he can see Claire all the time, and
Yeah,
she loves it.
that's great. That's
You got
great.
anything else before we dive into our topic?
I don't think so. Oh yeah, I do.
Okay.
I forgot to mention after we took family pics last Saturday, I had heard about this little local barbershop singing group in Bowling Green called the Caveman Chorus. And they were performing in town just for free. And so after it was like 4 o'clock that afternoon, and so we had our pictures taken. We all went there, listened to the barbershop group, and they were really good. They sounded good. And you can join them. They practice every Thursday nights, and then they start performing at different things throughout the years. Like you can go sing with them. And I was trying to convince Neil and at least one of our kids. I was like, y'all
Mm-hmm.
should do this. It'd be so much fun. But nobody bit. But they sent. I love barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandpa's first cousin was in, I've probably mentioned this on here before, but the barbershop quartet on the Music Man. And so I've always loved it anyway, but they had really tight harmony and they were fun and they were telling little holiday jokes, like corny jokes throughout the performances. And at one point, they asked for any kids in the audience that might want to come up there and sing with them. So Rich, our oldest, he's going to be 3 next month, just pops right up and walks over there. And he was the first one. And it took, I think, maybe one or two older kids finally went down there, but he was the first one. He just walks out there and he just stands out there right by the director, just looking around.
Not shy at all.
And then it wasn't until they gave him a piece of candy that Jude was like, wait, what? And so
Yeah.
Jude gets down, walks over there, they hand him a piece of candy. And then Jude decided to turn right around and come right back where we were
Hmm.
sitting. So he didn't hang around for the actual singing part. So then the chorus starts going, hey, what are you doing? Well, then he got embarrassed and started crying right there in front of everybody. As he's coming back, he lurks around. He starts crying and running to his mom. Ah!
Yeah.
And then everybody's going, oh,
Mm. Poor
it
little
was
guy.
funny. It was so cute.
Well, that was a
And we
neat
all
thing.
went to Chick-fil-A afterwards, so it was a fun day.
Do they travel, this group? Do they travel?
I don't know. I know they're Bowling Green based and they perform at different, like at Mammoth Cave. They
Hmm.
perform in Mammoth Cave,
Wow.
but I don't know beyond Bowling Green if they travel. So
Yeah.
it's the first I'd ever heard of them.
Hmm. Dad used to sing barbershop too. And I don't remember, he was with a group for a while, but they just played with it after that. As I was growing up, he would get groups together and they would sing, and it's just a neat
Very
men's
fun.
harmony.
Oh,
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, only one more thing I want to mention,
Okay.
and I got your Christmas card yesterday, and Dale's drawing. I always look forward when I see your card coming. I look
Mhm.
forward to see what Dale has drawn, and it's fascinating. I mean, all of the pen strokes in there, and I don't know if he used pencil or pen or what it is, but
I think he used
the
pen.
intricacy of what he does is amazing.
He's really good at it. And every year we just say, we need a drawing for the Christmas card. And he sends us something. And we have so many members that look forward to it. They send us pictures of their collection.
Yeah.
Like they pull them out. Rita McGuire is one of them. They pull them out and put them on their fridge in the
Mm.
holiday season. Or somebody told me that they've got them on their desk at work. They just leave them up,
Yeah.
And one of our older members is missing one from one year and it's driving her crazy. So,
That's fun.
but he's been doing that for several years. Yeah.
I wondered if this was the Polar Express or if that was the inspiration or if just
I don't think so. I don't think so. He usually does something like he's done trucks and airplanes. And so this year he did a train.
almost always mechanical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's catching a glimpse of his heart.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, he is lovable and it's easy to love him, but I would venture to guess that there may be times that he's not so lovable. Like
Nah.
all of the rest of us have struggles with being unlovable and loving the unlovable. And this is something that I have had written down. I have a running list in my iPad of possible podcast topics and really wanted to come up with something just fun for Christmas week. Then I thought, well, this is something that probably would be helpful because we're
Mm-hmm.
going to run across people that are a little
Stress.
stressed out or just too busy or sick. People get sick this time of year and
Or
just,
even sad.
yeah, yeah,
Holidays can be
exactly.
difficult. Mm-hmm.
And sad can make you not very pleasant to be around. So, yeah, that's a good point. But I was thinking about loving the unlovable and how hard that is sometimes and how to be like God. We have to love the unlovable because God, that's the definition. God is love, and there's so many aspects of God that prove him to be one that loves the unlovable. And when you think about who are the unlovable, and of course, I am one of those that is not lovable. At times, I can be lovable, and then probably more often than not, maybe not quite so lovable. But I think that it is everyone. Everyone
If
has
you say
times of,
so.
except for Kathy Pollard, who is never unlovable. But who, so who comes to mind when you think of unlovable without being specific? No, I thought about there's those that are distant in our sphere that really aren't in our sphere, politicians or
Mhm.
um, celebrities or whoever. And there are plenty of those that there's things that happen this week that are just very sad and distasteful and just hard to watch for people that we don't really know, and they're unlovable. but
Mhm.
God calls us to love even them. And then there are others that are easier, I think, to love when they're unlovable. You know, your spouse, your husband, your wife. When you live with someone, you see them at their worst and at their best, and but you know that they're not going anywhere. You know, I think this morning, 2 mornings in a row, I'll just spill the tea here. John and his phone. Half the time he has it on do not disturb and does not get the text or the phone call or whatever. And then he turns it off and forgets to turn it back, turn do not disturb back on at night. And so this morning and yesterday morning, 5:15, he gets a text and it's loud because he has to have it loud. And it made me a little cranky, I will confess. You know, I wasn't quite ready to get up yesterday. Today I needed to, but I and so I came out, made my coffee, sat down, and he came out and he wakes up happy. And he came out and he said, "You're beautiful even when you just woke up." And I was sitting there with a not a very pleasant expression on my face, I'm sure. So I thought, well, that's appropriate. I am not being very lovable right now, and he's still loving me. So I think it's a little easier to love the unlovable when it's somebody that we dearly love. But what
And our
about,
children.
yeah,
Children
mhm,
aren't always lovable, but we love them anyway.
you have to. You have to. No. So who is it? Who do you find it hard to love? And I don't mean to put you on the spot like specific people, obviously, but sometimes your employer or somebody like that.
I just always think about the person that never, the only time they ever speak up is when they're criticizing.
Mhm. Critical
They
people.
always take issue with something or take something the wrong way or take something personally or they you just know if their hand goes up or if they come to you or if they send you a message, it's not going to be pleasant.
Yeah.
And that's the only time you ever hear from them. So I find that very unlovable.
We have to love them too.
You have to love them too.
Yeah. So I thought about fellow church members sometimes. We all, most of us anyway, that are listening to this podcast, I would imagine are members of a local body somewhere. And there are going to be other members of your congregation that maybe you don't click with them. Maybe y'all just disagree about things, or it might be that they just annoy you. And I think about that. I think that's my heart problem, not so
Mm,
much theirs. Just
right.
people that are we're not going to click with, but we're
Mhm.
still called to love them. And I thought about for those kids or adults who are in school, maybe their instructors, their teachers are sometimes hard to love if they disagree with something that you say, and maybe a grade that you get. I thought about drivers on the road, which tends to be one of my weaknesses when they, do things that are dumb on the road. And
Mhm.
I think, ugh, but I know I don't really have to like pull up next to them and say, "Hey, I love you." But my attitude towards those people in general
Maybe
needs.
not ride their tail though.
I love you so much. I'm gonna run you over and
Just
tell
want to
you.
be close to you.
Yeah. I thought about people that are inept. That was just the word that I came up with. Inept in their whatever it is that they're doing. And what I was specifically thinking of, my mom is in a facility, and sometimes there are people who are caregivers for her and they don't take their job seriously, or, for whatever reason, it's a hard job to have.
Mhm.
And I get frustrated sometimes because I feel like they're not doing what they need to be doing to take care of my mom. And so I find it hard to love them. There's one in particular, and she is one who loves to tell you when you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, or you need to do it a different way, or you shouldn't have that in your room, or you can't sit there, or don't, but she's not, she comes around and will be pleasant. But anyway, I digress. I have to love her too. But what about friends? Sometimes our friends are not so lovable. Friends who maybe don't show up like we expect them to. And there's that word expect. We sometimes have those expectations that are not realistic. So then I thought about Jesus and his friends. And, there's Peter, who was always quite rash in the way that he did things, or um, he wasn't always lovable. The three that fell asleep when Jesus was praying, maybe wasn't quite so lovable. So many times when you read about accounts of his apostles, they didn't understand. And I wonder, sometimes I look at the things that the Bible says about Jesus at those times, and he would say things, do you still not understand? I read that with frustration, but I don't know that that was what he was feeling, because he was God. He is God. And so was he frustrated with them, or was he just trying to get them still to understand? I don't know. So there are those who are unlovable, and everybody that's listening, I'm sure, can think of people in their life that they have had a struggle loving like God wants us to love. So, do you have anything you want to add before we keep going?
No, keep going.
Okay. So, how do we love the unlovable? And there were several things that I thought of, and then I read Carl's article this morning, which I thought was so good and spot on with what I was trying to put into words. And he didn't call it loving the unlovable. He called it walking worthy. But there's so many things, and I'm going to get to that a little bit more in a minute. But he talks about having humility and having gentleness and having patience and forbearance, the things that we read about in Ephesians 4. But before we go through that, I wanted to just mention how to love the unlovable is that we first of all have to choose to love God first. And in Mark chapter 12, it talks about the first commandment being that we are to love God with all of our heart and our soul and our mind and our strength. And then the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. And we remember that because God loved us first, we love him. And that is First John 4, which means that we forgive because he first forgave us. And I think I always think of that forgiveness colored glasses, looking at people, remembering
Mhm.
that we have been forgiven, and so we forgive others. And we're sacrificial like God because he sacrificed for us. I remember in our wedding, Johnny Ramsey did part of our ceremony, and I can so clearly remember him saying, God so loved, he gave. And we all know John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. But he meant that the characteristic of God was that he gave because of his love. And
Mhm.
so we choose to love God first. We're sacrificial like God is. Then I think we have to remember not only to choose to love God first, but to remember that we have agape love for these people that are not lovable. And that agape love is different. It's a different kind of love. It's not necessarily that phileo love, that friendship love that develops when you have time with people and you just develop that friendship. This agape love is a love, and Carl mentions this in his article. It's a choice, even when it sometimes hurts us. And it hurts to love the unlovable. It hurts to encounter someone that's not easy to love, and yet say, okay, I'm going to choose to do the right thing with them and love them because that's how God wants me to be. And that's the agape love. Even when it costs us, we have that love. So then how do we demonstrate that love? One of the things that comes to mind first is to be compassionate. And you remember I believe, I want to say it was in Mark. Yeah, Mark chapter 6. And I don't know that these exactly happened at the same time, but they're recorded in Mark at the same time when John the Baptist was executed. And then
Mhm.
the disciples went and they got his body, they buried him. And then right after that, it says that they reported things to Jesus. And so it sounds to me like they were reporting what happened to John the Baptist, his cousin. And, how must that have impacted him?
Mhm.
And so it talks about how he told the disciples to come away and rest. And when I'm sad, I just told you about something. I just want to hole up by myself and I
Mm.
want to just kind of be still and quiet and kind of recover on my own. But when I think about what Jesus did in verse 30, Mark chapter 6, verse 33, says that the crowd saw them going while they were going to rest. And then the crowd ran ahead and got there before they got there. And the Bible says that when Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd and he felt resentment. He didn't feel
Yeah.
resentment. It says that he felt compassion. He felt compassion on this crowd that to me was intruding upon his private time of needing to grieve or to rest or to just to recover. And here's this big crowd. And I know how I would have reacted. I would have been resentful or I would have been angry. I would have been, can you believe these people? I'm stretched thin. I just need some time by myself. But
Not now.
yeah, give me a little time.
Yeah.
But that's not what he said. It says that he felt compassion because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And that comes to mind so many times to me when I'm impatient with someone and I feel like, especially someone in the world, and I think this person is a sheep without a shepherd. And we need to learn to feel that compassion. So once again, I talk too much. It's your turn to talk. And then I want to talk about Carl's article.
Well, I think that's the perfect text, and I've always loved it for that reason, because it's so easy to put ourselves in that situation. And it may not be a loss that we're grieving, but any difficulty that comes up and catches you off guard, I mean, Jesus wouldn't have been caught off guard, but kind of flips your world upside down for a little while, and you're just trying to process and figure it out or grieve or whatever it is, an illness or sad news or whatever it might be. And I think I'm definitely react the same way you do. I don't want to be worrying about all my other commitments right now or anybody else. I just want to focus on whatever it is that we're going through. And I imagine most people feel that way. And so that text has always caught my attention for that very reason, especially since we're talking about a group of people, a crowd. They're defined as a crowd, which was always following Jesus around, not people that he had a working relationship with. And he said, well, I should probably do this. Or, he loved everybody, but it was a crowd. It wasn't like a bunch of individuals that he had a close relationship with. You know what I'm trying to say here. And it's such a challenge, how easy it is to excuse ourselves when people misbehave and they're the ones acting unlovable. So why should we have to go out of our way to be to them what we should be or to serve or whatever it is? But in a situation like that where, we ourselves are the ones going through something and somebody else is seemingly thoughtless, you can add that to your list of people that are hard to love.
Mhm.
Is when, somebody reaches out to you, they know this is your special time with your family, or this is a short time that you've got, but they're still, or they'll say, I know you're busy, but can you, blah, blah, the people that just are seemingly thoughtless with you and your time. And here you've got this crowd, as you say, getting ahead of Jesus, not even giving him some space. And the message there is exactly what he says in John 13. I'm leaving an example. I'm
Mhm.
here to serve. This is what I'm here. This is why I'm here. And when it costs something personal, when it costs humbling of yourself to show how much you love somebody else, that's true loving the unlovable. And all I kept thinking about through all of that is what does that look like exactly? Because I feel like I pat myself on the back when I just don't retaliate, and maybe I don't give them the cold shoulder, but I probably give them some space. You're unlovable. I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm not going to be give you the cold shoulder, but I'm probably also not going to be warm and lovable and friendly and go out of my way. So what does that actually look like to love the unlovable, And that's what Jesus demonstrates right there is to tell your heart that you have compassion for them and then act on it, in a way that involves serving and making them feel seen and loved. And it's so challenging. It's so challenging. I feel like I said, I just am proud of myself for not being mean or retaliating in kind. but definitely need to work on the whole feeling compassion, seeing them, loving them, serving them. That's what it means to love the unlovable.
And it's intentional, as we seem to use every week in this podcast, is to use the word intentional. Like agape love is intentional. It's a choice. And in that occasion, Jesus chose to see them as sheep without a shepherd and to see what they lacked and what they needed. And that was to be taught about the gospel and the good news that he had, that he brought. And then he fed them. It's funny because the disciples say, send them away so they can find something to eat. And he says, you feed them, and then proceeds to help them feed this crowd of people. But and then you talked about John 13, and I imagine you're talking about, by this, all men will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. And, you do set yourself apart by not retaliating. I think you set yourself apart as a Christian by doing the right thing. But man, what the world would see if
Mhm.
they could see us being the hands and feet of Jesus in situations. You think about homeless people, and I confess, you don't know what to expect. You pull up next to one that wants a handout, and what you've been told all these years about homeless and how they got that way, and there are shelters that they can go to, and I understand all that. I understand that that's legitimate, but I also see that there's a soul standing there, and there is a sheep without a shepherd, and he's hungry, and he might be addicted to something. He might want your money to go buy some alcohol. But as someone said to me one time, that's their problem. And I know we have to be careful not to enable that kind of thing. But just seeing them differently, seeing them not as this person's undesirable, stinky, possibly violent, whatever, but seeing them as a soul. And I've tried to train my mind and my heart to see people as a soul rather than just a person who is unlovable or has a problem or uh, is a sinner. Again, when you see yourself as a sinner, and I'm a forgiven sinner, but I'm still guilty of things that I shouldn't be guilty of. But it changes when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change, and when you look for souls instead of a person in a bad situation, it really does change how you look at them.
Well, the example that Jesus gave of love was washing his disciples' feet. By this shall all men know that you're my disciples if you have love one for another. But he demonstrated what that love looked like.
Mhm.
It was very intentional, very actionable, very humbling, and he knew everything about those men that he lowered himself and washed their feet for, and what was to come, what they were going to do. And but he says, this is what that love looks like. Can you imagine knowing in advance when somebody's going to be unlovable? Like knowing ahead of time that somebody will do something to you,
Mm,
but still going out of your way to love and serve and show them how much you care about them. Man.
mm, yeah. So I wanted to bring up Carl's article, and he is talking about Ephesians 4 2, the version that he used says, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. And he talks about how chapters 1 through 3 of Ephesians are talking about God's grace. And so this is a transition to practical living, he says. And man, this is something that we probably face, if not every day, almost every day.
Mm.
And I mean, it's not much more practical than this to think about the people in your home, the people in your life, the people that you work with, the people that you encounter in the grocery store, the people that teach you or that you teach, the nurses in the nursing home or in the doctor's office. You never know what they're going through. You never know what's going on in their lives and why they act the way they act. But when we see them as souls, and this is practical to think about, how do we treat them? And so he says that humility means having a low estimation of oneself, not because you loathe yourself. I think, what was that song that it changed over the years? For such a worm as I. Do you remember? I don't remember which song it was.
At the cross, at the cross.
Yeah. Did he devote that sacred head for such a worm as I? And they changed it to such a one as I.
Mhm.
And I think because we shouldn't loathe our,
Alas, and did my Savior bleed?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So having a low estimation of yourself because you recognize your utter dependence on God's grace. So when you recognize that you are this person, I mean, you are no different in God's eyes. You are no more uh, loved or special than anyone else. You are loved and special, but we all stand on level ground at the foot of the cross. And it's humbling to realize that I'm no different, but it's a good humbling. We all need that. We need to be humbled. But Carl says it's the opposite of pride, which destroys relationships. And I thought, man, that's such a good way of bringing that into this, what we're trying to talk about, because we want to build relationships, not destroy them. And pride destroys, but humility builds. He says, without humility, we cannot serve one another or maintain unity. So I thought, if we have that humble spirit that he's talking about, then it's going to be easy for us to see a soul and to love the unlovable, even when someone's at their worst. And let's be honest, there are sometimes that it is really hard to love someone when they're at the bottom of the barrel in their life and they've made mistake after mistake after mistake, and you've when you know exactly what they need to make their life better, and you have shown them and told them over and over and over and they still don't get it and don't take it, it's easy to want to just say, forget it, I give up, walk away. But God doesn't do that. He's always waiting there. And we're human. I know we're human, but having humility about the grace of God and how we need that grace of God, it helps us to remember that other people need our grace. Other people need God's grace, and we can love them through that lack of good judgment, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking about you always hear that phrase, hurt people, and remembering why somebody is having their most people it's how do they describe certain things like episodal? It's episodal unloveliness. And you can put a finger on it, it's that time of the month. They're tired or they're under a lot of stress or they're grieving, just it's episodal. You can tell. And then some people, it's just like, that's just who they are. They are prickly. It's like hugging a cactus or a porcupine or whatever. That's just the nature of their personality. But it does help to remember there's a reason, why they're the way they are, why they're acting the way they are. And if we remember that, I think it'll help us with the compassion thing. Maybe they are hurting or they've been hurt and they're lashing out and they've developed this hard outer protective shell, that just pushes people away almost intentionally, and in some cases it's like, no, there's no real reason. They're just mean. They're just mean old nasty people, and they're only looking out for number one and they're living hard and making everybody else miserable. And but even then, isn't that a reason for compassion? Because how sad and lonely, and they don't have peace. Their life is filled with turmoil. So whatever the reason, we can always remember they didn't get there overnight. Something happened or something's going on. And then the second thing, I forgot.
The train left the station.
It did. I had two things. You talk, it'll come to me in a second.
Well, just I think how many times have we, at some point after knowing a person for a while, that's kind of a hard person to know, and then maybe a year down the road, or not even that long, or maybe longer, we find out something, or we learn something about their upbringing or something about their situation. We go, that fills in a lot of the blanks there and makes me understand more. And God already knows those things about them, but we're human and we don't. But just keeping in mind that we don't know all the story.
It's good.
Everybody's got something in their past that shapes and creates our personality, and I just remembering that I've got that. That humbling part of remembering that I have the same thing, it makes it easier to swallow. Did you
I
remember what it
remember.
was?
Yeah.
Okay.
The blessings that come from it, just like all these difficult things that we talk about on here, because God knows us and He knows what's best for us, even though it comes at a cost sometimes, or it seems that way to serve and humble and sacrifice and all those things, we know because this is who God is, that He blesses His people on the other side of it. And that's not our motivation, but it's just a fact, that as hard as it is, seems to be in the moment, how do you feel when you do hard things? How do you feel on the other side of apologizing and humbling yourself in any scenario and swallowing your pride? And how do you feel? There's a blessing right there, just in that of, you don't have to carry resentment or bitterness or disliking someone in your heart. That's not fun for us to carry that in our heart. But if you let that go and instead claim the compassion of Christ, it blesses us as the one making the choice to do that as well. So that's something that maybe would make it easier in the moment to remember that. And then the other thing is that God does amazing and surprising things
Mm.
when we act like Christ. And have you ever had a situation where, like you were start talking about the scenario with somebody, something happens, but you choose to love anyway? Even when you really didn't feel like it, you choose to love anyway. You choose to continue to treat them as a brother or sister in Christ that you love and respect. And then sometime down the road, lo and behold, either God does wondrous changes in their heart or your relationship. I mean, it's amazing how that happens, that God goes to work and He creates change or surprises when you do things His will that seem so counter to what we really feel like doing. So it's kind of exciting to, if you can work through the human side that we wrestle with, that doesn't want anything to do with it, that just wants to hole up and stay, if we can work through all of that and follow His example with the love and compassion and action, a lot of times on the other side of that, you can kind of look back, and it may be a while down the road, but I bet you more often than not, you can look back and go, wow, who knew we'd end up here or that this would unfold?
And when you trust God with it, you know that it may not be something that you see, but they'll see it or someone sees it. I mean, it's going to be a blessing somewhere. And
Yeah,
being content with that, being content knowing that somewhere, somehow, even if we don't see it, it may be a generational thing that comes later. So being content
point.
and knowing
Mhm.
that God's going to handle it and do the right thing. So humility, and then he said about gentleness or meekness is strength under control. He said Aristotle described it as the balance between excessive anger and passivity. And then I loved this part. He said, in a divided church, gentleness diffuses conflict and reflects Christ's character. You've seen that. I know we talked about it today.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
man, um, an unlovable person does not bring out the gentle side in me. In fact, I was thinking this morning that usually if John's mad at me about something, it just makes me mad. And I think that's a real character flaw. It doesn't make me go, oh, why is he mad at me? I don't know. There's what do I need to change? I just bristle. But that is not a gentle spirit coming out at me. But gentleness diffuses conflict and reflects Christ's character. I think that's so powerful.
It is. That's good.
Yeah. Then patience, because I know we are trying not to let this drag on too much. What, us drag on?
What?
Patience is the next one. Patience or long suffering is slow to anger. And he said, in relationships, patience endures irritations without retaliation, remembering how much God has patiently borne with us. So, an unlovable person irritates us and does things that make us want have that knee-jerk reaction to, well, if they're going to do that, then I'm, like you were kind of talking about earlier, maybe not retaliate, but withhold love, withhold affection, and that's a marriage thing too. We withhold a lot of things when we're angry about something or irritated. But if we have patience, then that's gonna preempt that retaliation, and it's going to help us remember that God has forgiven us and God is patient with us, and so we need to be that way towards the unlovable people in our life.
Yeah, Dina Myers, I can't remember if I mentioned this one story that she shared when we were talking about her, but um, she was sharing an instance where somebody just, for whatever reason, didn't like her. First of all, what?
What in the world?
Can't even imagine. But you know, when people give off that vibe and you're like, I don't think they like me. I'm not quite sure why, but for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And she had one of those. And at first she was kind of sad about it. And she just decided, I'm just going to love him anyway. I'm going to love him to death, you know? And she did. And it took a while. It took a while. But that, you know, ended up creating such a close and dear relationship that went on for years, you know, to where she didn't just had a relationship with that person, but with that person's children and grandchildren. You know, it was like because she made the choice instead of backing off, okay, I guess I'm not her cup of tea. You know, that would have been me. Okay, you don't have to like me, I guess. But she was like, I don't, you know, I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna love her. And that was a perfect example of God doing something with that and ended up turning it into something really beautiful and impacted her family, this person's family, and their future families. Like you were saying, it can be a generational thing.
Wow. That talk about being intentional. You
Hmm.
really have to be intentional to love someone who doesn't show any affection or love towards you.
Yeah.
And then the final one that he mentioned was to bear with one another in love. He said this means making allowances for others' faults, forgiving as God forgave us. Agape love motivates this forbearance. Um, how often do we make allowances for others' faults? I think we do that with people that we're very close to. Um, I'll say, well, I
Mhm.
know that he had a bad day today. It's okay. Tomorrow's another day. But for someone that we don't have as much love or affection for, it's kind of hard to make an allowance for that. If they burn us, we're like, burn me once, shame on you. Burn me twice, shame on me.
Mhm.
So, that's it. It's like you get one chance. And
Yeah.
and that's not how God is. God gives us chance after chance after chance. So are we forbearing with one another in love? Then he goes on to say these virtues are not optional, but commands. And we'll share this next week because it's too good not to. You shared it today, but I want more people to see it in the group. He said, in a world defined by division, pride, and impatience, the church must shine as a countercultural community. Imagine families, workplaces, and congregations transformed by this grace, but we can't manufacture these traits in our own strength. They flow from the Spirit as we abide in Christ. So practical. And he encourages us to repent when we have struggle with that and yield to God and to put these in place in our life, to have that humility and gentleness and patience and forbearance or tolerance when we're dealing with anyone, God's people or not God's people, anyone that you encounter that is kind of hard to love. So just wanted to real quickly run through some practical suggestions as far as loving the unlovable.
Well, let
One
me
of
just insert real quick, if
Okay,
you don't mind.
yeah,
It's that repentance part that is so hard. You know, I feel like there have been many topics that we've talked about on this podcast through the years, and I'm like, yeah, I need to work on that. I'm not good at that. I need to be better about that. Yeah, Neil, I probably drive Neil crazy with, you know. So I'm owning it, but not doing anything about it. You know, and there's no glory in that, you know, and it's not a mark of humility to say, yeah, I probably need to be better about that, and then not do anything about it. The repentance is where it's at, and acknowledging it is a step. But if you stop there, it does nobody any good.
yeah, yeah. That's the hard part is putting it into practice and making that change. I mean, you think about salvation, and there's those we talk about the steps of salvation, and it doesn't stop with confession.
Mhm.
There's more to it than just confession and knowing, but actually doing. Okay, some practical things we can do. One of them is to take on or share others' burdens. In Galatians 6, if anyone's in that context, if anyone is caught in a trespass, you who are spiritual, restore that person in a spirit of gentleness. And then it goes on to talk about bearing one another's burdens. And, sometimes I think I've got enough of those. I don't really need to take on yours. But if I love you, I'll do it. What if I don't love you? If I don't like you very much, I'm just not inclined to do that. And that's not what the Bible's talking about. It's talking about bearing the burdens of others, even those who are unlovable. Someone who is not showing me their lovable side, I can change that. I can modify their behavior sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes by showing these traits that Carl talked about and the Bible talks about. Um, Sharing their burdens will help in an unlovable situation. Then another suggestion is to do what we do out of love. And that's kind of a duh thing, but not out of just love in general, but out of love for God. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 16, it talks about how we should not neglect doing good and sharing with others because it says, with these sacrifices, God is pleased. So we're pleasing God when we love the unlovable, when we show love for others because we love God. And that's a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice to love someone that's not lovable. It's setting ourselves aside and choosing to honor God. And with that kind of sacrifice, God is pleased. Another one is to remember that everything good comes from God, including the good that we can do with these people that are difficult to love. James chapter 1:17 talks about every good and every perfect gift comes from God. So the things that we do that are good, that comes from God, comes from his strength. And whatever you do, there's another one. Whatever we do, do it for God's glory. When we love someone that's hard to love, we don't go, okay, I did that today. I'm patting myself on the back that I managed to do something really good. And we're not doing it for ourselves. We always need to be motivated by glorifying God, 1 Corinthians 10:31. And then the last one is to not forget that we serve God, not ourselves. In everything that we do in life is to serve God and not to serve ourselves. And we get those backwards so much. We serve ourselves all day long, every day. It's what I want. What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? I'm too tired, whatever. But it really changes our motivation when we remember that we're doing things and we're serving God, not ourselves. Whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than men, knowing that from the Lord you'll receive the reward. It's the Lord Christ whom you serve. The last one, actually, the second to last one, unless you want to interject anything.
Well, I'm gonna wait and see if you mention.
Okay.
I have a thought, but I'm gonna wait and see if it's one of your things.
Okay. The next one is to see Jesus in every person, even or especially the unlovable, to see Jesus in every person. And of course, Matthew 25, there's a long section about when you when you visit the sick and those in prison, you're visiting me. But it says towards the end, then they will also answer, Lord, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick in prison and didn't minister to you? He said, he will answer them, saying, truly, I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. So it's not just a matter of doing, but it's a matter of not doing. So see Christ in every person. And then the last one is to be confident that God will provide the strength that we need to do the hard things, to love the unlovable, to show the love of God to every person that is hard to show the love of God to. Ephesians 6:10, it's talking about the armor of God there, but it says be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. And that helps so much to know that I'm not doing this out of my own strength. I'm doing this using the strength of God. And that helps me a lot. So when
Instead of just thinking, I can't,
or I don't wanna,
I
I don't
can't
wanna.
do that.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's it. What do you
That's
have?
really good. Very toe stepping, but really good. Just a couple of things. I would say, remember that we don't know everything. Because we were talking about earlier, hurt people, and remember, maybe something they've gone through. But a lot of occasions, we really don't know the whole story. I would say in everybody's case, we only know about people what we think we know. We don't know everything. We don't know the whole story. God does. And so there's always, there should be grace and compassion for that reason alone. And I remember one time in a congregation I'll not name, there was somebody that I, definitely got the vibe that they didn't like me. And one day we ended up having a conversation, and I can share this because I'm not patting on my back because I was not being intentional. It's not like I said, well, I'm going to be the bigger person and go talk. We just ended up thrown together in this scenario. Neither one of us asked for it. It just happened. And so I just said, hey, how are you? I just started a conversation, and she, like, her eyebrows went up, like she was surprised. And she just lit up and she started talking to me. And from then on, every interaction was completely different. It was like she sought me out and smiled and said, hey, how are you? And what I learned in the moment was here I am thinking, she definitely does not like me for some reason. I think she thought I didn't like her.
Yeah.
And I know that my face can look that way when I don't mean for it to. And so all this time I was thinking, I don't know what her problem is. I don't know what I ever did to her. And I think the truth of the matter was she was assuming that I didn't like her. And when I came and spoke to her, because I had to, she was pleasantly surprised. And it changed everything. So we don't know everything. We like to know and we think we need to know, but we don't. And we make some assumptions, and sometimes they are way off base and they're just completely wrong. We are wrong. We are in the wrong. And I think it's so important that we remember that.
There's a lot of people that build walls of protection. They're protecting themselves. They think that they're protecting themselves by having these walls up. And I think part of loving them intentionally is trying to crack away at those walls. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good visual too.
Yes.
And then the other one was remember that we may be an answer to someone's prayer.
Mm,
You ever pray for your kids, surround them with people that will keep them close to God? And probably that unlovable person has people in their life who are praying that very thing for them. And that may be us. God may be trying to answer that prayer through us and our engagement with Him and the offer of love.
what a great point. Yeah. And we should want to be, ask God to provide us with opportunities to be the answer to someone's prayer, because those unlovable people are loved by someone. They have a mom, they have a dad, they have
Hmm.
people that for whatever reason, may be distant, but God can use us if we allow him to, if we want him
Well,
to
just
ask
think
him to.
about people that start pushing people away, because they're acting badly. They're in a major rage against God and they start acting out and they act badly and they start pushing away everybody and disappointing everybody. That person's spouse or mother or grown daughter
Mhm. Yeah. I know of
is
people,
begging God to send somebody to intervene.
yeah, that I'm thinking of someone specifically who during her teenage years kept messing up and kept messing up and kept messing up and got to the point where she felt like she was too far gone. And if it weren't for people that loved her through that unlovable period of time and proved to her and showed her, God's love of forgiving over and over and trying to crack open that shell, and reminding her that you're never too far gone. It takes a lot of effort to try to break that cycle, that self-defeating self-loathing that came up earlier in the topic. So, okay. Okay, that's all I have. You have anything else? Do you have anything good for me?
Just want to pray that when I'm the one that's unlovable, I'll recognize it but also be grateful for the people who are acting like Christ toward me anyway.
Yeah. Don't you find, do you find this in yours and Neil's relationship? It seems like with John and me, there are times when I'm weak, he's strong, and
Hmm.
when I'm strong, he's weak, and we balance each other out in some of these areas. So,
Hmm.
and friends
Absolutely.
can do that as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Be patient with those people in your house this
That's
week
right.
during Christmas.
Oh,
So, do you have something good for me?
I do. Kim Moyers sent some goodies home with us last night, and it was in this beautiful tin with this little felt ornament on it. And when I opened it up, it had this layer of, I didn't even know what I was looking at. They were cut into little squares, and it smelled kind of sweet and spicy, but it wasn't gingerbread or anything like that. It was a much lighter color. So anyway, took a bite, and it was amazing. It was very appley. And it had nuts in it and so good, unlike anything I've ever had. And so I texted her real quick and said, I don't even know what those appley things were that you gave me, but they were delicious. And she told me they're called apple brownies.
Mm,
So they're similar to like a blondie,
mhm.
they're that color. But they have chunks of apple in it and walnuts. And she sent me the recipe. It was so comforting, cozy, delicious. And so I will share that with everybody.
I've never heard of apple brownies.
Me neither. Apple brownies. They were very good. She had
That
sprinkled powdered sugar on top of them.
sounds like something you'd find at the Apple Barn.
Hmm. Yeah, delicious.
Well, mine is something that Costco has right now, but you can also get them different places. Have you ever heard of super cubes? You probably have some.
Hey.
SOUP, super cubes.
Oh, that kind. I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I do not have any.
Okay, so this is like a knockoff brand that Costco has, and I bought
Oh,
this
I need
box. It
those.
has, I think, five, and I'm going to divide them up and give some to the girls and probably keep one. But so you have leftovers of soup or um anything. I mean, it shows cornbread in here and lasagna, and I think you could probably just cook in them intentionally, not necessarily leftovers, but your meals,
Hmm.
and then you freeze them in. I'll pull one out so it maybe is a little more clear. So you freeze your food in these cubes, and then when you're ready for whatever it is, this is the small one. So I think you would do maybe just an individual serving of corn casserole, let's just say. But then
Hmm.
you freeze it and then you can pop it out and then stick them in a bag. Or I mean, I think it's probably better not to leave them in this, but to pop them out, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then they call them super cubes because with soup you can freeze an individual portion of soup and then have them in a Ziploc bag that you can just warm up one portion. And it's so helpful for me because I tend to leave leftovers in the refrigerator until they are not any good anymore. It's like
Hmm.
black eyed peas. I love black eyed peas with corn and cornbread. I mean, with ham and cornbread, but I get tired of it when it's just the two of us.
Hmm.
I get tired of it before we're out of it. And so if I can freeze little individual portions, then it's like Christmas to me when I go and have those in the freezer and just one serving and I can warm it up and then it's like you have a meal that you didn't have to prepare because you already prepared it. Anyway, I may be the only one excited about it, but I think super cubes are pretty neat. And I was
That is neat.
excited to find these at Costco.
And then if you have more than one type of soup and you and your husband want something different, you could
Yeah.
say, do you want broccoli cheddar or tomato or whatever, and heat it up. That's awesome. It reminds me of Kim Kasarjan. I don't know if she still does this, but they used to have one day a week that was leftovers. I think it was Wednesday because it was easy to do before church. And she'd keep her leftovers throughout the week. And then on Wednesday, pull them all out and heat them up. And her family would just go through and everybody get what they want, which I thought was genius. But I'm thinking you could really do that with those super cubes. You don't have to worry about anything going bad. You could do it for a couple of weeks, pull everything out, make sure they get eaten.
Yeah. Yeah. John loves leftovers. I'm lucky in that regard. Carol Nelson is the one that told me about these super cubes in the first place. And so I went and looked them up. They're kind of expensive, that brand, but this is like $30 for five. So I figure parceling them out and sharing them will be a good stocking stuffer gift. But
Yeah.
well, I think they're pretty neat.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Draw to an end season 6 of Looking Up with Kathy and Carla. It's been fun.
It's been great. And we're grateful for everybody that listens. God bless you all.
Yeah. And Happy New Year. We will see you, Lord willing, in 2026. All right. I love you, and I will see you soon, and have a Merry Christmas.
Love you too. Good conversation.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.